All right, Alex, it is the Midlife Sisterhood.
Yep, that's us.
That is us.
I think we should just rename ourselves because, I mean, who are we kidding? This is how we survive midlife is by having each other and talking about the things that are hard and good and exciting and unknown. I think that's the thing. There's a lot of unknown. So that can feel to some people like scary and to other people like exciting. How do you deal with that unknown? Does that feel scary or fun to you?
Well, it's interesting because I've said before, I'm a disc coach, and there's actually a measurable on the disc/driving forces test that says basically how you handle change. And mine's pretty high. Like I actually handle change well. I don't resist it. I welcome change often. It's not hard for me to pivot because I'm like, oh yeah, that means there's opportunity. However, in midlife, that change comes with some loss. And I am someone who feels loss deeply. So for me, it's not so much the change, it's the loss that's been the hardest. What do you think?
Well, you know my disc assessment better than I do. I think it says I don't like change. And yet
it does.
Right. And yet I really prepare myself for it because I think I feel that tension way back in the early stages. I mean, seriously, I have been thinking about my kids leaving the house since they were put in my hands. So like that big change of parenting, I've been preparing for it mentally for a long time now. Preparing, I say that in air quotes. Maybe it means I've been fixated on worrying about, I don't know, that has been very proactive in the preparing, but I've been very aware of the changes coming. And I think my husband, Derek, and I talk a lot about those things because we both want to be prepared. And so we maybe pre-grieve a lot.
The pre-grieving, that's real. That is real. And some people do it more than others. And so then it is weird because some people pre-grieve and they're like, okay, I'm done. They're like, what? They just left. They just left for college. And now I'm just grieving. Like, how are you past this already? It is the processes people go through are so different. And I think that's where we can have such grace for each other. I do want to hear from you, Alex. Like, we haven't even really talked fully about why we did this series. Like, why did we dive into midlife so deeply?
Well, it's a time when there's a lot of varying stressors coming at someone. So often work stress, family stress, kid stress, parent stress, financial stress, health stress, all of those changes.
It's a lot of stress.
Right. And so we're hearing from you, our listeners, that this is a stressful time for you and we want to serve you. And the truth is, we talk about a lot of these topics that we're covering in this series because we're not done with this series. If you think the Sister Straight Talk means this is the last episode, this is just the mid-series episode.
Yeah, because this is a long series because it needs to be.
Yeah. So we're going to keep talking about these things that are important. We talk about things like marriage and parenting and health a lot. I mean, every January we do a series that we call The Healthy Way. And the truth is we talk about it in context of midlife because that's where you and I are. But I think naming it out loud and saying, okay, we're going to talk about marriage in context of midlife brings it into a crystallized focus that is helpful for all of us. Totally to say, agree. This is a stressful time during this stage of life because, and then it gives it a little more clarity. So I think that for me was the why, that it felt like this would be helpful to all of us, to you and me as we're recording, but also to our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. And I think too, when we name it, there's something powerful about naming, and we name, okay, like Kelly said, what we've done in the first part of life isn't quite working anymore. And so now we need a little bit of a new set of tools, or at least a mind shift that's going to help us navigate the second half of life better, not only better, but in a way that's thriving, not just surviving. And so I really appreciated that. And for those of you who didn't catch that episode, it's the first episode in this series with Kelly Flanagan. And he really talks about the two halves of life and how we have to approach them differently. And I think that's what this series is doing. It's helping us have those new perspectives and mind shifts that help us to thrive more in midlife.
Yeah. Yeah. The tools that worked before are no longer working. And we can either fight against it and try to use those tools over and over, and they're not effective, or we can acknowledge what is true, and gather some new tools, or at least new ways of using the old tools. I don't know.
Yeah,
new approaches.
For sure. I would love to hear how midlife is for you, Alex, just even personally. I mean, if we're talking about kind of the broader sisterhood being in midlife, but what about you in your individual life? What are you experiencing?
Well, I think all that list of multiple stressors, I have felt them. And it's hard to know, we also have the benefit of having just lived through COVID during midlife. And so it's like this perfect storm of all of these weird factors coming together. So that's no joke, right? Midlife in COVID is no joke. But I just have felt the financial stress. I mean, we're heading into retirement ages. Like, it now is a time that we can kind of see on the calendar. College, we're just launching into paying for college, and we've got a lot of years ahead on that. Older kids are just expensive. Their hobbies are expensive. Their car insurance is expensive. It's so there's that. And then I think the caregiving responsibilities of wanting to be available to our parents and our kids in different and new ways that are just changing. And as my kids have gotten older and some time has opened up on my calendar, but also because of financial stress, I've taken on a new job, and that's been a good thing, but it's new and it's a change. And I've seen it as maybe this new chapter in my life that has coincided with a new chapter in our family life as our first daughter has left for college, having this new chapter in my work life. And that actually has been a really helpful thing for me. Yeah. How are you feeling about midlife these days?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciated what you said. And I would just maybe add to some of those things, figuring out parenting adult children, how to really love and support and cheer on and detach at the same time. And that is, it's a challenge. It is a challenge, and to let go in a lot of ways. I would also say just physically not having as much energy as I have in the past, and partly due to sleep problems for the first time in my life. I've never had them. And I know that's a luxury to even say that I never had them in the past, but definitely I'm finding that is impacting me, and that my energy, I can't rebound as quickly or I would go on little sleep before and be okay. And I'm just finding that I'm not anymore. That
the old tools don't work.
The old tools don't work. There's limits, and the limits are hard to accept sometimes. And yet I know they're good for me. So I'm really trying to embrace the limits. And then I would say the other hard part of midlife for me has been seeing people struggle, either like burnout from jobs that they've been doing for a really long time, or struggle just even physically, like just a lot of disease and sicknesses are plaguing the people around me. And also struggles in relationships. So whether that's marriages that are struggling, or there's people around me whose spouses are struggling with some some really hard behaviors that are causing some destruction. And man, that's hard. That is hard. And I feel like in midlife, I just feel like I'm holding, not that it's a burden to hold other people's struggles. It's not, it's an honor to do so, but it's just, I feel the weight, I think, of what people are experiencing around me differently.
Yeah, I have a whole new understanding for why the midlife crisis exists
Mm-hmm.
because the stress points are there, and we're facing our own mortality. I mean, those
Yes.
things, those endpoints as our parents are facing theirs. I mean, for many of my friends, they've already lost both parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so that sense of life doesn't go on forever that we think we still have in our 30s, even like we just think that's forever. Life's forever.
Yes.
And the panic button of, have I lived the kind of life I have wanted? And I only have a little bit of time to make up for all of the things that I still want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And just want to tell everyone to take a deep breath, but it's hard. It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you mentioned being able to easily pivot.
Mm-hmm.
How have you done that specifically around things that are true to midlife?
Well, I love the idea of pivoting forward. So, you and I talk a lot about Ken Weitzma and his book Create versus Copy, and how it really met me at a time where, I mean, I thought I was reading it for work, but actually it ended up really speaking to me when our daughter was leaving home and she was going to college, and we were losing in air quotes, that child for the first time, sending them away, and our family being different. And that was a profound moment for me in my life of mothering, of just having to let go. And he talks about this idea of narrowing margins, and how, if you think of it just as two lines kind of coming together, so that the margins narrow to the point where it's going to dead end. They're going to meet eventually, and they're going to reach a dead end. And you've got to innovate. You've got to do something different because it's dead ending.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when it comes to the idea of pivoting, to me, I like the idea of pivoting forward, or somehow introducing the word innovation into that equation, that it's an opportunity for us to do something differently than we've done it before. And in that is the birth of something new. And to me, that springs hope. And that hope is important for me at this stage, because I need to know, at every stage actually, that God has something for me and he's not done with me. And that in the pivot, there's something there that he's called me to. In fact, not only called me to, but works that have been prepared in advance for me to do. And now I get to step into that in a new way. So, an example of that is even life coaching, and some of the ways that, when my time opened up, when my daughter left, and then my kids just kept getting older, go figure, one after the other. And so my time started opening up, and life coaching is something I always felt like I knew I would love, and that maybe there was a calling in that. And so that's one way that I pivoted and started that coursework, and have walked down that road, and I'm loving coaching. So I think when I look at this idea of pivot, it really does have hope attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Well, I'm glad you brought up Ken Weitzman's book, because I did think about it a lot. And maybe because the interview that you did with him, you talked about McKenna leaving. And as we were approaching Gabby leaving a couple of years ago, her senior year of high school, I knew that it would be good for me to have something new in my life that was not attached to my kids. Mm-hmm. So, and because there were financial needs there, a new job that felt like I was learning new things was really good for me. And it just so happened, God was very gracious in the timing and the job itself, that I started it the summer before she left. So right after she graduated from high school. And so I felt like as the margins were narrowing in one area, it was opening up opportunity in another. And that's what Ken talks about in the interview with you. And that was super helpful for me. And I was intentional about it. I mean, it also worked out really well, but I think anticipating, since I talked about anticipating change, knowing that it's going to be hard, and planning, how can I set myself up for success to deal with this as well as I can deal with it? I knew it was going to be hard regardless, but I also knew I can put some things in place that are going to make me excited about the coming months. So as I am grieving her leaving, I'm also excited about this new thing that is new to me. And so that was a way that I was able to approach that. And I really did think a lot about that interview as I was making those decisions. And I think I've talked to a number of women and their husbands who have said, it's really hard when your whole life is wrapped up into your kids and then they're gone. It's really helpful if you have some other things you're interested in and are pursuing, whether that's paid work or just something else that you like to do, that you're pouring yourself into, that helps remind you that you have purpose outside of your children. And even though it's hard, because I like being a mom and I like having all my kids at home, and I have loved every stage. Toddlers were hard for me, but I still loved it because I was anticipating they're not going to be here forever, right? So I tried to soak it all in. And at the same time, I need to remember my life's not over as they transition.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point. And that we have a future with our children that looks differently, but just as beautiful. And I think that's a part of the mind shift that's important. And we can do that in every area. And so is there another area you feel like you've done that in?
Well, I think as far as exercise, I have always looked at exercise as a means to a certain body shape. Weight, not so much, but just I want to be able to fit into these pants, or I want to look good in my swimming suit kind of thing. And now I mean, this might sound bad, but I almost really don't care what my body looks like as much as I care about, will it enable me to do the things I want to do? Yes. And so energy for me is really big. And I know I've mentioned before that working out for me is about giving me energy and helping me relieve stress that I'm carrying in my body. So both of those things were just kind of a mind shift of change of, this is why I'm working out. The reasons are different. Yeah.
Yeah, I can relate to that. And I think too, maybe in the past, whereas I would have been more tied to my scale and letting that determine how I was doing. Now I feel like in the same vein, I'm more tied to checking in with my body. Like, what does my body need? Okay, my body needs whole food. So I'm going to give my body whole food. My body needs rest. I'm actually going to give it rest. That's probably been the hardest one for me. My body needs sleep, I mean, not just because I think rest and sleep can be different for me. I think I can just be going a million miles an hour until my head hits the pillow, but sometimes I actually need the rest as well. And then the sleep on top of that. Or my body needs exercise. My body needs to move. That's what my body needs. And so really just being more in tune with like this holistic health. It feels so good. And it is a mind shift because it's less about kind of the external and more about the internal.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other pivots you've made that you feel like, yeah, this is due to midlife and it's a good direction where I've had to use new tools or change my expectations?
Yeah, I think, I mean, I already touched on, but professionally, I feel like it's opening up some opportunity and that feels really exciting and hopeful to me. So that's like been a really positive part of midlife for me, is feeling like, oh, wow, I really can run here. I've got some bandwidth because I'm not I mean, I'm still parenting and I still have, a child at home, but my time has just opened up so much. So that feels exciting in midlife. And I like that,
Mhm.
that there's like opportunity there for me to feel like I can run. Um, and then the other thing I would say is just that idea that I also alluded to earlier of just letting go, loving and letting go. And I talk all the time about what your husband, Derek, taught us years ago, but the bless and release. And I've taught so many people that statement, and so many people close to me use it. Bless and release, bless and release. But there is a releasing that happens in midlife, whether that's in your parenting or whether maybe in a friendship or even, having to say goodbye to some things that have been really stable in your life.
Mhm.
And I think this idea of kind of blessing that time, blessing that person, blessing that child, and then releasing them has been very, very helpful and healing for me.
Mm. I'm glad.
Do you use bless and release a lot?
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
All the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah. I mean, it often has to do with conflict where I
Mhm,
just know, we're just different here. We're not
mhm.
neither one of us is going to convince the other person to change their minds. And so I just need to allow us to be different and not be so invested in the other
Mhm,
person's belief system or opinion,
mhm.
and bless and release them and say, yep, I think that's okay. And even saying that out loud is hard. That's okay that you feel that way.
Yes.
Because I hold this
Mm.
value or this belief so strongly in my own life. It pains me that you don't agree with me on this.
Yes. My
But
gosh. Word. But bless and release. It's
mhm,
okay.
it's
Bless and
okay.
release. And then we go back to what I said a couple interviews ago. And that is, and it's not my statement. It's from Melody Beatty's Codependent No More, but it's,
Mhm,
if this is not the end of the world, it's not the end of the world.
mhm,
Like you've survived 100% of things if you're still breathing and walking this earth. So it's okay. It is
mhm.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we only have a few minutes left. Let's get really practical for the
Okay.
sisterhood.
Okay.
What's saving your life right now?
In midlife, what's
Hmm.
saving my life in midlife? Growth. This is true for me in every season. And actually, this is something I've learned in my methodology courses of coaching is that when people are growing, they are happiest. And that's, one of the tenets of coaching is actually that we help people grow. And that really reflects then in their life. They're happier, they're more
Hmm.
content, they're more satisfied. So for me, growth is really key. That is saving my life because in every season, if I'm not growing, I really am not very happy about it.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel abundant. I guess maybe that's more of the core of it is I feel like if I'm growing, there's an abundance about life there that's very compelling for me. So that's saving my life. Time with my parents is saving my life because I know it's not forever. And I just treasure them. I treasure the time I get with them. Just last night, we had over my parents and my sister and my brother-in-law and one of my distant cousins who feels more like an aunt than a cousin. She lives in Australia, but she's here. And, we were all sitting around the fire and I thought, this is, this is what I want to do is sit
Hmm.
around the fire with people I love. So that's saving my life. And then I would say the last thing is, fresh apples. It's apple season here in Washington State, and there is nothing like it. I mean, I go apple picking once a week right now. Just those fresh apples off the tree and their taste, like I can't
Hmm.
describe their taste. It is so different than a normal apple that you get in a grocery store. It doesn't compare. If you've tasted an apple, it's not like you've tasted all apples. If you have tasted a Green Bluff apple off of the tree, it is so heavenly. And it's like the abundance of God in a fruit from a tree in the fall when it's crisp and the leaves are turning. It just is the best. It's the best.
Yeah. Remember a few weeks ago, I was there visiting you and
remember that?
And I ate an apple that we had just picked. And I said, this is my childhood, because even though it's been 40 years since I went apple picking when I was a little girl on Vashon Island outside of Seattle, it just took me right back to that place, because the apples I eat from the grocery store in Denver, Colorado are not the same, even if they're Washington State apples.
Right. No, right. There's something about them fresh off the tree. I mean, it's like you just feel like I'm really living. I don't know. You know, those moments where you're doing something else, it's usually outside, and it's usually, you're feeling just the sense of, this is beautiful life right here. I feel that way in an apple orchard. Okay.
That's our advertisement for Washington State Tourism Board. What's saving me right now?
Yeah. What's saving your life in midlife?
Oh, saving my life. Well, right now, music, which is weird for me because I am not a music person, but worship music right now is just feeding me in a different way. I think I'm really wanting to hold on to what is true, what is right about God, what is right in the world, because the world feels really chaotic to me these days. And so music helps connect me to God. So music.
What are some of your faves right now?
Well, we did, and I don't want to sound braggadocious, but this is kind of braggadocious. We did a few weeks ago hear Lauren Daigle in concert at Red Rocks. That was pretty amazing.
That's pretty amazing.
And I love her music. I love her voice, but it's very soul-y, salty feeling. And it's very worshipful to me. So that was a highlight of this fall. That saved my life.
Yeah. Do you listen to Maverick City?
I do sometimes. Yeah.
I
mean, I just listened to them a couple days ago. I guess I'm just not into knowing all the bands and all the things. And I do tend to like just the single voice acoustic is kind of feels pure. And it feels like, because I'm a terrible singer, like that person's singing on my behalf. That voice, it's right there. It's what my soul is expressing. So I built it out when I'm by myself. But
do you like Shane and Shane? They have that.
I don't know Shane and Shane.
You don't? You have to know Shane and Shane.
That sounds like two
Look
people.
them up. It is.
Is it? Yeah.
Shane and Shane.
Okay.
And they're a fave for me.
Okay.
And they're very like low-key acoustic, just the two of them. Fabulous.
Yeah, but this is way out of my comfort zone, just so as everybody knows. Like music's not my thing. So to be talking about it, like I know what I'm talking about. I'm kind of faking my way through this conversation. Okay. Being with people who are genuinely living out their faith is saving me right now. So the Sisterhood, saving me big time. My work coworkers, I love them to death. My church family. Those are my people, and my extended family too. Like, I feel like the people that I know that are humbly doing the work God has put in front of them, it just is a stabilizing force in my life. And then tied into that is just doing work that feels purposeful. Again, this all has to do with me feeling like the world is kind of falling apart at the seams. And I know God has given me certain things to take care of, and being surrounded by people who are also doing that. Oh, that is keeping me sane. Yeah.
Would you say there's some resources that are helping you also right now?
Well, Spotify Family Plan, we signed up for it this year because I'm a cheapskate and it took me like 20 years to sign up for it. But
it's so good.
I realized that other people in my family were each paying for an individual plan. And I was like, people, we're going to save money if we just have one family plan. But I love it because no ads. And, but I just love it. So that's been, really helpful. And my kids have appreciated it, that they get to have their own little Spotify. And, you know, I would say I am part of a couple of parenting Facebook groups that are really helpful to me. Because when you think Facebook group, you kind of think fighting and nastiness. But the university parents Facebook group for where my college daughter goes to school is actually super, super helpful in so many different areas of my life and is a positive place. But I find out a lot about what's happening at the school and a lot of good, helpful information. And then I also have a neighborhood Facebook group that's just for parents of teenagers. And so I know a lot of them. I know they're like my actual life friends, but that also feels like a place where we're trying to encourage each other during really hard parenting years and resource each other. And so that is a place that has tried to stay pretty positive. So I would say online spaces where helpful, practical tools are being shared in a positive way has been helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, old school Facebook. There you go.
Yeah, because it allows still for that discussion.
Right.
Other platforms don't have.
Totally.
And links to sharing like articles or websites or that kind of thing. Yeah. Oh yeah, the Facebook group is alive and well. Okay. What about you? What about resources that
I'm just thinking how I'm really not in
2002?
any Facebook groups. Maybe I should be. Okay. I would say some great resources. I have been doing the Kelly Minter Joseph study, and it's taken me all summer to do it and going into a fall. I'm almost done with it, but I love Kelly Minter and her studies are amazing. And I just feel like I'm meant to be in the Joseph study right now. It is just so beautiful. And just the story of his life and the way that she draws out kind of these really detailed, specific things. It's so, so rich. So that is a resource that I would highly recommend. And just, I would say, being in a Bible study. Sometimes we just get in ruts, and trying something new, trying a new study from a new Bible teacher is a great thing. Another thing is revisiting the boundaries book. I think as we parent adult kids and we're unsure about what is ours to speak into and what is not, I think it's really helpful to revisit. They use this example of you each have a house and you have a fenced yard. And there's people that try and throw things into your yard, but you need to pick it up and put it back in their yard because that's not yours to manage. And so I think as we're looking at even this idea of how do we parent adult children or young adult children, maybe they're older teens, it's hard sometimes. There's a lot of gray in there. And so that even revisiting, what is in my yard and what's not, and trying to be as healthy as I can be. Again, who can I control? Me. That's the only person in this whole equation I can control. So how do I control me in the best and healthiest way possible? I think that's always my goal.
Yeah.
And then Henry Cloud, who's one of the guys who wrote, Cloud and Townsend wrote Boundaries. And Henry Cloud has millions of videos. I don't know how that guy does what he does, but even just his Instagram videos are so wonderful and helpful, and they make you a healthier version of you. So I would highly recommend the Henry Cloud Instagram account. And also he has a whole online platform, which I don't have time for right now, but I would like to more in the future, but where you can subscribe and get any of his videos on any subject that you're needing help with. So helpful.
Yeah. Midlife boundaries.
Yeah.
Helpful. Okay. Last question. Yeah. What changes have helped you as you have tried to pivot during midlife?
Maybe let's talk a little more specifically about that question. Maybe you answer it first so I know what you mean.
Well, specific changes I've made that have helped me manage my life, my midlife life, is time blocking and scheduling out every possible thing I have to do, putting it on my schedule, because it eliminates my mental weight as I'm trying to carry around all of the responsibilities of my life and worries of my life. Which then when I know it's on the schedule, it will be taken care of, I can then be more present in my downtime. And I've just realized how much of my life, like when I've been writing books or something, I've always just had it right there on my shoulder. And I'm trying to take those things that are weighing down on me and externalize them and put them over here. And I know when I'm going to deal with them so that now I don't have to carry them around. And the other thing is my night mouth guard, because I had a tooth fall out because I was grinding my teeth. And the dentist told me that she has seen 3 times as many tooth falling out situations since COVID because people are stressed and they're grinding. Oh, so wow. I now have a mouth guard. It's super sexy.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay. Well, that's good. Okay. So I see what you mean by changes. I would say my one change I made since the Sisterhood retreat a few weeks ago is at that Sisterhood retreat, I expressed that I needed to sleep more. And then someone came up to me and said, do you want to be sleep partners? Like, meaning, do you want to like text each other when we're going to bed? Because we're going to be more disciplined about it. And I said, sure. And so we're texting each other, like going to bed. And I'll say, wow, you're beating me. Woohoo. I'm 0 for 5, which has been the case the last week. But just even having that accountability has been great because I am really trying to value going to bed earlier as a self-care practice. And so that's been really fun to do with someone else.
Yeah. It's good. It's good to have a buddy.
Yeah. So that's one change that I think I've made recently even. All right. Well, the Midlife Sisterhood togetherness. Here we are.
Here we are. We're rocking it. We are rocking it together and we are not done.
Yeah, we're not done. We're continuing.
We've got some really good interviews still to come. So stay tuned, Midlife Sisterhood.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Bye.